Alarambal Jatev Artor Nar Vore. That's in Mandoa, or in English, we say, welcome and good morning, my brothers and sisters. I am Udesla Jorir. I am the co-founder of the Way of The Mandalore Religious Movement. We are a registered domestic nonprofit in the state of Ohio and a legal 501c3. As usual, before we begin today, I have to make it clear that this video is for religious education only, and local laws may vary. Neither I, nor the admins, nor the council members, nor the Armorers Guild members are lawyers, and nothing in this or any other message or social media post is to be taken as legal advice. End of disclaimer. Welcome once again to the Way of the Mandalore Religious Movement. In the last video, we gave a brief overview of the first tenet and what it means for a Mandalorian to remain armed at all times unless alone. Now today, in our third overall message and second covering the 12 Core Tenets, we will be covering its companion, Tenet 2, Remain Armored. A Mandalorian must wear at least one article of functional armor at all times unless alone. Such an article must be made of a material that traditionally functions as armor, such as steel, leather, Kevlar, etc., and should display the sigil of the Way of the Mandalore and be visible to others whenever possible. Now, what does this mean? Like the first tenet, this is a requirement for all who seek to keep the Way of the Mandalore. Whereas the first pertains to firearms specifically and weapons in general, the second refers to the wearing of at least one special and specific piece of armor at all times, unless you're alone. Such an item can be as simple as a leather cuff, bracelet, vambrace, or as extensive as full armored plates. The decision is left to the individual Mandalorian to the extent of the armor he can safely wear daily. To be clear, this is a physical and tangible piece of armor, not mental armor or spiritual armor or emotional armor. Physical armor. Just as in the same way Mandalorians in the fictional universe are easily recognized by their symbols, whether it be the T-visor helmet, the mythosaur, or the Heart of Beskar, we as Mandalorians should be just as recognizable by wearing our armor and displaying our sigil openly and proudly. Having the armor marked with our sigil also acts as a form of consecration or sanctification. It signifies that the wearing of that article is not only acknowledging the spirit of the armor, but reaffirming one's commitment and ongoing decision to keep the way every day. In doing so, it is also a public but quiet proclamation of our faith, as we are to live openly and unashamedly as Mandalorians. Now, being unarmored in public. The exceptions for being armored while in public are much the same as those for keeping the first tenet. Certain training exercises, medical care, and the physical limitations of your job, so on. Also included in this is the requirement to thank the spirit of the armor when donning or removing the armor article, if possible. Being alone, the definition of being alone is also the same. It means either being physically alone or with family or close friends. It's a time for the Mandalorian to be at peace and does not necessarily mean his or her proximity to other people. And just like with the first tenet, it means that it is not a requirement to be armored at these times. But by all means, do so if you choose to. But if you choose not to, also you must be prepared to don your armor quickly. What type of armor is acceptable to be worn daily? A lot of people from outside our faith who are new or aren't familiar or don't care to be familiar with what this religious movement is all about will point to the show. And like so many other aspects of this religion, people can have a passive knowledge of the TV show and think that they understand everything. In the show, Din Djarin and the other Children of the Watch, who are an offshoot of the Death Watch faction of the fictional Mandalorians, have integrated the requirement to wear the Mandalorian helmet and to not show their faces at all times. That's not who we are. In the same way, those people may expect to see us either walking around every day wearing a Mando helmet, or in full battle rattle with plate carriers and rifle magazine pouches, or even in cosplay style prop armor. That's not the case. Though we have no issue with cosplay, and in fact intend to utilize it for public outreach in the future. And there is also a requirement to own and maintain ballistic armor capable of protection against bullets to the best of one's individual ability. That bears repeating, to the best of their individual ability. Not everyone can afford the best and highest rated armor. The daily article of armor doesn't need to be something so extensive. The most common and practical solution was found organically within the community, and that's to wear a wrist cuff or vambrace with the sigil somehow marked on it, whether it's painted or engraved. This allows the Mandalorian to fulfill the requirement to be armored, but without something too bulky or cumbersome that can get in the way of their daily life. Numerous styles and options are available through the Mandalorian Armorers Guild Facebook page. They are the official armorers for the religious movement. They've been with us for quite a while, and the head armorer also sits on the board of directors. Now, there is not a requirement for anyone to purchase armor from us. That has been brought up. This is not a way to just raise money. There are many options available out there, other craftsmen for you to choose from. You can even make your own if you possess the skill and or the desire to do so. We, of course, recommend the Armorers Guild because they are within the community and they help to support the movement, but no one is required to purchase anything from us or anyone specifically affiliated with us. What doesn't qualify as armor under the second tenet? Now, this has caused a lot of discussion within the community as to what could constitute armor and would satisfy the second tenet. We'll start with the easier one today: pendants and jewelry. While things like necklace pendants and rings, even with the sigil on them, can be a great reminder of our faith, they're decorative, and they are not sufficient by themselves to keep the second tenet. Moving on to what some people have playfully called bootgate or bootgeddon. It has been asked and suggested by a few people that things like steel-toed boots or other workplace-type PPE, personal protective equipment, would be adequate to cover this tenet. And if not, why not? Some people even jokingly responded asking about condoms, the mask situation we all had to deal with for the last few years, or even vaccines. Now, these were likely said in jest, but the original question is a valid one, and it should be clarified. Some of the people asking about PPE even make a few valid points. What they probably don't realize, though, is that they've stumbled across an issue concerning the spirits of weapons and armor that we will address at a later date when we cover Tenet 5. But for the context of this message, the answer to this question is no. Workplace-style PPE is not sufficient to cover the second tenet from a religious standpoint. Now, why is that? For the sake of brevity for this video, the armor articles of faith are to be items above and beyond regular clothing that are worn with explicit religious intent and that proclaim the wearer as a keeper of the Way of the Mandalore. If you're in a workplace environment that requires the wearing of steel-toed boots or safety glasses or a hard hat by everyone working there, how does wearing the same such gear as everyone around you, who probably don't share your religion, act as an open and unashamed proclamation of your faith? How does wearing work boots reaffirm your commitment to keep the way in your daily life? As I said, this is a more complicated subject that may have some surprising aspects for you when we cover Tenet 5 at a later date in further detail. But suffice it to say, for now, that no, steel-toed boots and other PPE are not sufficient to keep the second tenet. We'll close out today with a quote from a fictional Mandalorian training officer that is especially relevant to this tenet. This armor is not a toy. This way of life is no joke. Being Mandalorian is the deepest of all commitments, the greatest sacrifices. It will break you, make no mistake, but you will be better for it. You will emerge stronger than you ever were in your previous life. So long as you remain true to your brothers, true to your Mandalore, and true to yourself. That closes out our brief message on the second tenet of the Way of the Mandalore, remain armored. We hope you learned something more about who we are and what we believe. More information can be found on the Facebook page by searching for, quote, The Way of the Mandalore, the Mandalorian Religious Movement. We are also mirrored on Instagram, and we have a MeWe page and a very limited Twitter presence. Links are in the description. Please give us a like and a follow if you're interested in learning more about us and our faith, and donate to the Patreon if you are so inclined. It helps us continue to produce these multimedia messages and spread the way to those who are willing to hear it. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer them in future videos or social media posts. Special thanks and a shout out to Sir Blind Fury for becoming the newest person to support us on Patreon. Thank you, Vod. We will do our best to make you proud. Until next time, Vorentje, Mandawade, Balkoyer, Marutiek, Ibik, Runi. Thank you, brothers and sisters, and be safe. This is the way.